Okay. I want to call the regular session of the Economic Development Committee, December 2017 meeting to order. Our chairman called me this afternoon and said he was unable to make it. He had some personal commitments with his family tonight, so he last minute, so he asked me to put it to me. Okay, the next item is to approve the November 28th regular session minutes.
Motion to approve the regular session minutes. October 24th, 2017.
November.
The ones that are from October, the ones that we emailed out.
Okay, the ones on the table.
You have a copy of that?
Get on your packet, Phil,
Right.
second page of that.
That one's got it.
Sorry.
So the email had the whole.
You did make that motion, though. These are the same, you just a typo.
Okay, so.
I may have sent the wrong ones, apparently. I apologize.
I think so. These are actually the same, you just got the wrong date on it. It says November. Oh, it says November there. Where did that come up with October?
Yeah, because the minutes have the approval of the total minutes.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. I apologize. Let me disregard that. Whatever you guys want to do.
Okay, so Phil,
I will make a motion to approve these November 28th, 2017 regular session minutes. Disregard murders.
Okay, we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the minutes were approved. Next item is the staff report.
we're going to do this in two phases. Several meetings ago, Leah Jennings had requested that we have social media analytics on a monthly update, so we're going to do that as its own separate item. It'll be following the regular staff report, so it's item 4. It's part of staff report, but I wanted it to be highlighted separately. So, staff report, 155 new home permits. Most of the outdoor construction related to underground stuff has stopped the last because of combination of holidays and -4-degree weather. It'll take a bit for that stuff to start back up, but I would anticipate Clay Creek will be final and get a final plat and be able to start issuing building permits within 30 to 45 days, depending on a little bit on weather as well. They've got a few things that are hung up on weather, so that one's moving along quickly. We have been in contact with the Smithville Marketplace developer. They are moving forward as best they can in their discussions and negotiations and sending plans and getting comments back from MoDOT. That is one of the two biggest holdups right now. The other one is the status of Hospital Drive, and we're working, as a city, we're working with St. Luke's on that one to try and resolve that. So the infrastructure final approval has to happen just like any other project, and the traffic and all the improvements that will be required for their new entrance are on in serious discussion with MoDOT because it's a state highway, and we'll finalize the Hospital Drive questions we have about the exact location of it, easements, it's in a right of way, etc., so that they can put a water line in, because they're going to be installing a water line from commercial down Hospital Drive under 169 into their development, and extending the 169 water line that's south of them a bit up into it, create a second loop for us. So kind of important that we resolve the location of the right of way on Hospital Drive. That's
Can you
the one.
summarize the issues? I think some folks probably don't know.
As it relates to the actual TIF portion of it, or
Just the Hospital Drive portion.
Okay, the Hospital Drive has been a road on our system for many, many years. No one here knows when it was, doesn't know when it wasn't. We've got a road there, we've maintained it, it's got utilities under it, all kinds of stuff. It's been treated as a road. We, nor the engineers, nor their survey crew, nor their title company no one can find any document that ever created that road.
It used to be a gravel road, not too long ago, I think. That's
Um,
what I've heard.
Yeah, ultimately, I've heard that too. We don't know when it was created. The property lines go to this, roughly the center of it. So everybody on the north side of the road owns to the center, and everybody on the south owns to the center. Which is common in the old times, because you get the document and it would come in. So right now, we're trying to see if we can't find an old document that may be slightly misfiled somewhere. It's not going to be in our files, we know that, but we're trying to identify that. Short of that, we've already made contact with the hospital and some of the owners on the north side. We may need them to grant us a right-of-way deed for that right-of-way that's been, what everybody's been assuming is the right-of-way forever. And it's roughly 20 foot on either side of the center line. So once that happens, then we can put our new water line in there. We can't install a water line. Well, we can. By what's called prescriptive use. It's been a street, cities maintained it, etc. If push come to shove, it'd take a long time and we could file a suit, I'm sure, to win that. We don't do business that way if we don't have to. We're negotiating, discussing. We think it's going to resolve itself, hopefully in another couple of weeks. So that will allow the developer up on the hill the ability to actually finish their design. They can't submit to DNR approval for this loop until the easements are acquired properly, because they don't know where they need to put it in, because it's not in an easement yet. So that's where the water line is, and then, as I said, MoDOT's got their stuff.
They come up on the southwest side this time,
The southwest side.
169, through the island anymore?
No, nothing on that, no.
That's good.
The water line, it comes up, currently comes up north on 169 on the east side by the hospital, or by the, in front of the library, and somewhere near the Pizza Hut, it goes under, and then heads north to serve Croft Trailer Supply as well. That line, when it gets on the west side, is where it's going to be connected all the way up north to Hospital Drive, where there'll be a loop that loops the system. It gives better fire flow for everyone, and better water pressure for everyone, all the businesses that use it, etc. So that was one of the base discussions when we started that whole, what do we need? If you're going to do a TIF project, what do we need to have happen? That's what Any other questions? There are substantial negotiations going on related to future tenants. Not in a position to reveal the names of any of those, other than the main one we've all known all along is Price Chopper. But there are some substantial negotiations with major entities that you've all heard the names of. And I'm starting to get their engineers calling me about their design stuff. So to me, that means they're fairly far along if they're hiring professionals to start getting that stuff together. So it looks like it's about ready to pop. Weather is going to slow them down as well. It's hard to do a lot of underground work when the ground's frozen solid. So anything else? That's all I got for staff report.
Okay. Next item, social media analytics.
So I figure I gave you pretty graphs this time. So, a lot of our numbers are down. Most of that's because I've completely revamped our posting schedule. We started off just sort of willy-nilly trying to feel it out. I had to get a feel for when we were on numbers and everything. Went to a 3-a-day, 7 days a week. That was fun-ish. But our current one is actually based on when people in this area are online, which is generally about 8 a.m. as they get to work and about 8 p.m. as they lay down to bed, at least with our primary demographics. So we have a lot fewer posts going out, which explains most of these down numbers. Page views are down 8%, page likes are down 2%, so we're not seeing massive drops, despite the fact that we've got less than half as many posts going out. Reach is down about 46%. Again, that's you reach less people when you send out less posts. But each individual post is actually getting more reach than the individual posts were previously. So when people see our posts, they're actually doing something. They're actually reading it. They're actually clicking through it. If you look at the engagement graph on the back of the first page there, you can see the big spikes in reactions. Those are when people hit the little emoji icons. That's one of the simplest ways anymore for somebody to interact with it. We also have some pretty decent comment spikes there that you can see, a few shares. The other one, the last three are sort of rarely used, but those first three we're still pretty steady on. We have upwards of 40 a day on any of those three, so that's good. People are still interacting with what we're posting. And then video views are down, which is probably because we've had some issues with the videos lately. We got a new high-def camera, streaming camera, but our internet bandwidth is too low to support that definition. So we're now looking at bumping up our bandwidth. We've been needing to get proper internet out to some of our outlying office buildings anyway, so we're in talks with the two companies that are in this area that provide internet to see what's available as we cover all of this. And then the next page just shows you the time graph, which I found kind of interesting. Again, 8 p.m. is still our most active, that 8 to 9 mark. And then in the morning, it's anywhere for people start getting up and checking their phones at around 6, and it sort of peaks at around 8 before they head to work. So, all of our posts lately have been attached to media, either video or photo, which is a good thing in social media. More people interact with it. Average reach for any of our posts right now is over 800 people organically. That means 800 usually local residents that are checking them out. Our extended reach is somewhere in the 2,500 to 3,000 as far as non-residents, people that they share it to, that sort of stuff. So those are all looking really good. And the average engagement, they're clicking our posts. You can see their photos less than videos because you have to click a video to start it in Facebook unless you're on mobile. But they're commenting pretty well on both of them. So. And the sentiment is still pretty good for government. It's 32% positive. And then a big chunk of it is neutral. Both of those are good. Just a few negative comments, and a lot of those I feel like we've been addressing them now. So anybody ever has an issue with what we post, I encourage them to let me know so that we can fix it. Twitter better shows our improved post schedule and the post quality that we've been pushing for. Even though our number of tweets are down, our impressions are up 52%, 30,000 tweet impressions in this last 28 days, which for a small government is not too bad, really. Our profile visits are up 219%, which means that people are checking out our page, and a lot of times they're following us. They actually want to see what we put out on their feed. And we've also had more mentions. We've had more people tagging us in things that are relevant to our community, whether it be things that are going on nearby or news that's retweeting us and mentioning us that sort of thing. And again, sentiment's positive. It's about 35% positive, and then a big chunk of news. On both of those, one of the big issues that we really just need to start looking at is paid posts, essentially. Our organic reach really isn't bad for as small a place as we are, and as few people as we consistently have interact via social media with the government. But we could reach a lot more people, especially with events that we're hosting in the North Casey area, in Kansas City, in Kearney, and in the surrounding area in general, and bring them in if we start utilizing more paid posts. Now that I have a procurement card, So that's the long and short of it. The numbers are, even though the post numbers are down, overall social media is still growing, and you've got more opportunities coming up.
So what's an example of a post you would pay to boost?
Like I said, most of the time it would probably be events that might actually bring people into town. I'm not necessarily going to promote, hey, the Board of Aldermen meeting, because
Well, or like community events, like,
things like, it could be anything from the farmer's market to Chops brisket seminar to you know, the
Eagle Days coming up.
Eagle Days, the Christmas, the Christmas parade. There have been a number of missed opportunities that we probably should have, but there's always plenty of events going on that we can draw, potentially hundreds more people just by making sure that it gets to them. Social media feeds move quick, and the only thing the paid posts do is it puts it higher up their feed and it makes it stick longer. So they're more likely to see it as they scroll through.
so, and I guess my point to asking is maybe that's something the chamber and the city can work on together, because we do a lot of that anyway. And so we have to be careful not to favor one
Right.
business over another, but event-wise, it's something we can definitely
Well,
do together.
and we may want to, as Dan had indicated at the last meeting, our page boosts, are $25, $35, $50.
Yeah.
They're not, your numbers were scary, as I recall, you had indicated you had numbers of
Just doing
thousands and
those
thousands.
For a year, yeah.
Yeah.
For a year.
Okay, and ultimately.
It's about $300 a month.
Okay, I thought you had the boosting numbers that were frighteningly large.
Well, and the
But
other
ultimately, we may be able to, my point in saying that
My
is,
wife would chow my head off. I did that.
I fully understand that.
New menu item.
But it may be something that when we have the opportunity, it may be something we can partner with a local business. Hey, we have the opportunity to boost our post of yours for $30.
and that's the other thing.
Is that something you'd want to invest in?
Right now, a lot of what I'm posting locally is whatever people are submitting to me or putting on events on Facebook, like officially as an events page, because those are easy for us to link to as a city to say, hey, this is going on in our area. If nobody tells me about it, then I can't help you draw people to it. So if you've got an event going on, shoot me an email, drop it on our Facebook page, something, and we'll help cross-promote as much as possible. Because it's not about one specific business. There are a few businesses that show up more often on ours because they're the ones that consistently tell me, hey, this is what we've got going on. So,
Yeah, if they're more active with us, they're necessarily going to be more, like you said, higher in our realm of what we're doing on social media because they're interacting. You interact, we try to react with you. So. Okay.
YouTube channel? We're at 109.
Yes, we have enough now. The only problem is, and we could go via our old camera. It would be at a relatively low quality. We're hoping to get this bandwidth issue fixed so we can use the new high-def camera. That will work better for YouTube. It can stream directly to it, automatically caption, automatically tag people, basically everything. So,
And we're looking at end game February 19th, having everything up.
well,
If everything works well.
Yeah, contract ends in February, and if the rollout times out right, it could be within a month or two.
So what we've got to get the internet capabilities in this building up high enough bandwidth-wise so that we can do all the things that folks are asking us to do. It just takes us a little bit longer to go through the review process, and folks got to come in and see what we got and what they can do, all that. So, and I will say, Micah has had fairly decent response from our two primary vendors, considering it's over the holidays. It's holiday time, and we're actually getting these big corporations to provide us.
My internet's been sketchy all day, so. I try to get somebody to come out, and they say, oh, we'll come out tomorrow.
Yeah.
Doesn't help whenever I run my entire business off the internet.
To the wires, yeah.
Well, we've got wireless in here, that's part of the
I
problem.
mean, the wireless to where once it gets here, then everything is wireless, as the city moved to that.
Yeah, we've got that ability.
No, I understand that. It's not,
I,
like AT&T, do we have AT&T here?
yeah, AT&T is in the building with
So
some stuff, I think.
in the last year, have we made the upgrade to their wireless modem?
Oh, the only thing their wireless modem does is it puts out, okay, so AT&T and Charter both have a wireless modem package that the internet comes in directly to the modem, and then it automatically puts out a Wi-Fi network.
Right.
We already have a wireless router that puts out a Wi-Fi network.
Yeah, we've
But
already
they will
got
not, AT&T, just so you know, I've been dealing with this, and you're more than welcome to come up and use mine. AT&T, the only upgrade they will do now is the new wireless. That's the only one they will do. I have been on the phone with everybody. I have spent a lot of money
Right.
researching that AT&T. That's the only one AT&T will put out. You're more than welcome to come up and see mine. The problem with it is it falls offline. If it's
Right.
not used,
Right.
Which
it
is
falls
why
off.
we use our own
Right, and
wireless
we've
router.
got a fiber, AT&T fiber, and a Charter Spectrum fiber
Yeah.
that serves this building and the building next door. So we've got fiber here.
We've got a fiber line that runs almost directly, so it's more an issue of we just need to get that, we need to get more bandwidth
Right.
paid for and allotted, and we have to do a little bit of switch upgrades to make sure that we can support all the devices. But yeah, as far as wireless, we've got it covered.
And the cost is surprisingly negligible. I was amazed how cheap some of the, it's like, oh, we can do all that for all this. So,
Also, this is Casey Coyote. Casey Coyote, I don't know if you guys talked
yeah, and we've had discussions in the past with them. Their service is all wireless. I mean, their signal comes in. They've got cable coming in, similar to, it's similar to like DirecTV or whatever. They pull it off a satellite feed.
No, it's a line of sight kind of.
Right. So they've got a dish that shoots line of sight everywhere. We just haven't gotten.
Do you schedule your posts? I mean, is there like an automatic scheduler that you...
I schedule a lot of them ahead of time. There are some, if we've got an emergency that needs to go out, or if, for instance, we had a trash update last night that came out, or this morning we had the salting the roads that went out. I put it out a little earlier. But yeah, in general, I schedule them.
So they automatically post on.
They automatically post on 2 of our outlets. Instagram doesn't allow, the API doesn't allow automatic posting, so I have to manually do that one every time.
So when it comes to like events, you could have like a link to an events page or something that's kept up to date with, that you talk about fairness, by trying to highlight one event over another, multiple events occurring or whatever, or businesses or whatever. But you could highlight one and still have access to everything that's going on in town if there's like, I don't know, is that out there already? Or,
There are several Facebook pages.
Yeah, there's innumerable Facebook pages out there that have events on them.
Yeah.
One of the goals, once if we can ever get the new website figured out and get it developed,
Okay.
that's part of what we're going to be working on with.
And we have a community calendar on the chamber page that's linked to the city page that has it. It's just got a lot more than just community events. So what we want to work towards is a true tourism page that just has events like that, not pizza shops, Tuesday night special, or the chamber meetings, but just a true tourism page.
Right.
So.
And the good thing is Micah and Lee have been working on that kind of side by side, together and separately, on various aspects of it. And we look like we'll probably be February or March. We will have the board will have decided which direction they want to go. And once our board makes that decision, then that will kind of inform Leah's side of where she will be able to go, how that works, etc. So we'll be continuing that relationship to get a more comprehensive tourism-related web page, so that we can start thumping that drumbeat to let people know this is the message we're sending. We've got tourism going on.
Not just to inform our residents, but to draw other people in from nearby.
Right.
Okay, are there any other questions about the social media analytics?
Yeah.
Okay, the next topic is the Chamber of Commerce report.
So some of the business updates, some of the activity going on with businesses in town, if you all read, St. Luke's is acquiring Mosaic Life Care. The locations that the facilities they're acquiring is the Highland Plaza, Parkville, Platte City, Smithville, Burlington, and Shoal Creek facilities. They're going to continue their operations, Mosaic will, in Excelsior Springs and Kearney. I have a typo here. As a part of the transition, St. Luke's will acquire the physicians and the office staff at all of the facilities, and it should take place in April. So that's quite I didn't see it coming. It's quite a big transition for a lot of the communities that they're affiliated with. St. Luke's Health System, so they have their new chief executive officer in place now. And in the process of that, they also have been expanding their behavioral health facility at St. Luke's. They went from 16 beds to 30 beds, and they're renovating the facility. I think they're taking the adolescents or the youth to another location, so there's a lot of transition.
I've seen the plans. I haven't had a chance to really delve into what they're doing, but I know our guys are working on it.
Yeah, and they said it's focusing on the increased demand for adult behavioral health needs in the community. Clay County Economic Development, TJ Berry is taking over Jim Hampton's position as executive director. So TJ, on Monday, January 15th, Carol and I will be meeting with TJ. You're more than welcome to come if you would like. I think it's going to be about 11 o'clock. Jim Hampton is going to transition over into and this will all take place in January. So the affiliate organization, Midwest Small Business Finance, is something that Jim has been working on, so he's going to take over that position, and so they'll work side by side and continue on. So I think it'll be a great effort between the two of them. Hildebrand, so the Keystone Awards, and this is my first year that I haven't been able to go. It was, did you do the work for Hildebrand Dental for the nomination? I was thinking, oh my gosh, when's the Keystone Awards? We need to nominate Hildebrand Dental, and then I saw it there, and you did it, so good job. I mean, we've all seen their facility. They've done an incredible job. It's great. And then last year we had, Kozax was a part of a group that got recognized last year, so Clay County EDC puts that event on. It's a great event. It's a great event to recognize a lot of different growth that's happening in the area. If you haven't noticed, Reese Nichols Smithville is closed. They have vacated the storefront. Any of the agents that they have are working out of the Kearney location.
Which building, which address? Is this
it's just
Warner's
north
building?
of,
Warner's building?
Yeah, the main, so that is now up for
The old
lease.
auto parts store location, were they in front?
Yeah,
next
Napa,
to
when Napa was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next to where
Dennis.
Dennis is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, so they're gone. And the karate are on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's spaced right in the middle. And Reese Nichols, they really turned it into a decent office space, so there's potential for a few different things that could go in there. So that's in the process. Tammy, who is the main broker there, has moved over to Show Me Real Estate, I believe. So, but they have the main office of the owners is in Kearney, so I think some of the agents went over there. Small Business Boot Camp. This is an event that is put on by Mid-Continent Public Library, Square One, their small business services that they provide, and Platte County Economic Development and the Northland Regional Chamber. It's over in Zona Rosa. It's Friday, January 26th, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. It's usable technology. If you go, there's a Facebook event, and it'll give you a lot of information on it. You do have to register. It said tickets available. I'm not sure. They don't usually have a fee.
I have a quick question related to that. Will the chamber be advertising that for opportunity for chamber members to, okay.
And we
Because that's
have had it on our Facebook page, but Carol is going to send an email out to our different chamber members as well.
Okay, okay. And when is our next chamber meeting?
That is second, let's see, January.
So is it the 6th, 10th?
Yeah, the 10th.
January 10th, okay.
Mhm.
So it's still 2 weeks if we make sure we mention
Yeah.
that. Because that provide opportunities is part of our EDC strategic plan. Educational opportunities for our local businesses. So that's right on point of where one of the things that we've got the strategic plan.
Well, and last year we did a lot of the Eat and Educates through Platte Valley Bank and Mid-Continent Public Library. They put on really good events, and we were lucky that they traveled to all the different locations in the North End, so we had quite a few of them here in Smithville, which was nice. Because they really do put on Mid-Continent with their Square One, really does a great job with all of their educational events. So community events, December we had so much. January we have Eagle Days, which is a great event. Everybody, it's a great draw to the area from the entire metro. That's one of the only few big events going on in January. There's some New Year's Eve events. Cozax is having an event that evening. Soiree is having a brunch that morning. The American Legion's having a concert that night. So there are a couple different celebrations happening around town, but it's a quieter month. And then, so we, based off of the meeting that we had, or the Alderman meeting about the social media, or the website, it brought up with municipal CMS being able to stream or interface social media to our website, which we have them do on our website. So now we did Facebook because it seems to be where most of the activity happens in Smithville. So we're able now to, on our page, to really promote a lot more events than we were able to before. So it's actually working out quite well. It's something we'll continue to work on. And so I've tried a few times to look at analytics for our website, and I haven't been very successful, but they were able to tell me that in the last 90 days, we've had 2,800 hits on our website, which seems like a good number. So it's definitely brought to my board's attention the need to really focus on the website a lot more than we have. So it's something that, with the tourism website, will really have a pretty good impact. And I think, we discussed it with our board. The Facebook page seems to get the attention of our local community, but obviously, and I think a lot of the 2,800 are people looking for stuff in our area that are for outside the community. So it's something we're definitely going to work on paying more attention to, for sure. So that is all that I've got.
Any questions for Leah on the chamber? Okay, next item is chairman's report. There won't be a chairman's report.
Past chairman's report?
The chairman is not present yet. Next item, EDC bylaws. You want to introduce it?
Yeah, if I can. I've attached in your packet the ordinance for the Economic Development Committee. That's us. And it is 3 sections, A, B, and C. I've highlighted in yellow the areas that we may want to consider. The first yellow block is a series of questions, things that we ought to consider based upon some of our conversations. Number 1, we have 9 members. According to the ordinance as it's written, the mayor nominates each, and the board approves each. However, operationally, that hasn't been how it works in the past. Usually, the board of aldermen elects in April, either the first meeting that they come in or the first meeting in May, who will be their the alderman representatives. They do that for the planning commission, and that's something we probably ought to consider because it impacts some of the questions about when do we nominate, when do we have the elections for chairman or any other officers. And ultimately, in our scenario, we also have a Chamber of Commerce representative and the school district representative. And in my narrative in yellow, you'll see we could, given the way it's set up, we could get ourselves into a little bit of a pickle. For example, if Leah decided to leave the chamber for whatever purpose,
No longer be the representative for the chamber.
she could choose not to resign. And she would still be the member because she's been nominated and appropriately appointed, but wouldn't be representing the chamber anymore because she's no longer affiliated with them. So it kind of creates a substantial risk of, and that's me, I'm the guy that wants to avoid the risk. Same thing could apply to the school district. So I would suggest we sit down and make some recommendations to the Board of Aldermen, at least to those 3 positions, to change this so that ultimately the board shall approve. My suggestion would be the board shall approve the school district's nominee, the chamber's nominee, and the alderman shall elect. And we do that
Anyway,
April or May, so that's when the appointments occur. And then the meeting following the election of the new alderman is when we have the election. So in April, May, however that kind of works out, we have the election as to who's going to be the chairman from year to year. And vice chair would be, the secondary, create a new office, and we'll get into that. That way, we do it when we, on an annual basis, because that's what it says, is annually. But then it also says the election shall be held within 15 days of the members being appointed. Well, what happens if Phil decides to resign and we appoint somebody? That means we have to have this dang election again. It doesn't make sense. I think we need to clarify that in the ordinance so that we can put things into the bylaw to make it operational. But we can't change by bylaw an ordinance. So some of the bylaws that we were hoping to talk about, we really can't do yet, but we can get there pretty quick. Another one in subsection B, I've highlighted no state law exists. It says all appointments shall be made by the mayor and approved by the board as required by state law. There is no state law. So we can delete that. And that also would allow us to tweak the language of the ordinance so that the alderman, the chamber, and the school board reps can be nominated. And ultimately the board, it's the city's committee, so the board should have the vote on whoever presents the nomination. That would be another, and then that allows us, if we clean up those little snafus, it allows us to then elect the president, and it calls it out as president. We have traditionally called it as chamber. We can tweak that too. But and it says, and such other officers as may be necessary. We talked about creating in this scenario, we discussed it, and it happened at the next meeting. The past president sits as the president if the president is gone.
or vice chairman would be the.
Yeah, right. And that would be, ultimately, that would be my suggestion. That's the way the planning commission does it. That's the way most of them do it, is you have that elected official. There is no sense that we have a secretary or treasurer, any of those other officers, because the minutes are performed by staff. So we don't, and there's never any official documents. Planning commission has to have at least a secretary, because that's the way the state laws are written. They have state laws. We don't here. So,
Well, I really like what you were saying there about the timing and the appointments annually. So that would clean up that whole idea of a 3-year term versus a 1 year. Basically, those three, the alderman, the chamber representative, and the school representative would have a 1 year term.
right.
And it doesn't mean that they're done after that 1 year. They can continue at that so long as the board and the mayor approves the continuation. But every year it's reviewed And that way, because, like you said, I think with these organizations, it's very easy for things to change. A chamber member, you know, or
School board may
school board
change,
may
selection,
change.
they
Yeah.
may change,
They
they
have
may want
different-
somebody else too.
Different
So,
schedules and that,
Yeah.
right. It's
It's
an
half the
opportunity.
Board of Aldermen is going to change in April.
Yeah,
So
right, no, when the alderman, right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, in this case.
I like
it
what you said there. I
it
think.
will.
Yeah, in this case, it will.
Not in May. It will.
Yeah.
So ultimately.
Sort of. We have 3 who aren't running. So
We've never had an alderman on this for longer. I don't know whether we have one for a full year.
I plan to break that.
Maybe
At least at the year. Well, this is
Wayne was on here a
this
while.
is the tougher committee assignment. I mean,
Yeah,
it meets monthly, and sometimes bi-monthly, and
yeah,
you know,
right.
not a quarterly meeting.
Having anybody on it for longer than a year at a time. I don't know.
Before I got involved, Charlie Waters was involved with it for a while, and Ed Hockey was
Ed was
involved
on.
for, I thought Ed was.
That was on there for a couple of years,
Yeah.
or more.
But all that was before I took over the economic side as well.
Time
I used
flies
to just
fast.
review. So ultimately.
So, I mean, is that, so moving forward, I mean, does everyone agree with that idea? I think that really does clean it up, you know, and that would then allow us to have our annual election.
Well, then,
Which is
if
what I was
that's the
hoping for.
general consensus, I can draft that ordinance, clean it up the way that I kind of intimated here, and we'll have it on the agenda for the January meeting, so you guys can make a recommendation. We're shooting for the time frame, so we can hopefully get it through February, maybe even into March, however,
Time
so
for
that
for the
when
first
it
cycle.
gets- right, when April rolls around and we have an election,
Yeah.
there's going to be another election for that position. The school district can make a nomination, or if they don't make one, Todd will stay, and if the chamber doesn't make a new nomination, Leo will stay. And then ultimately, it'll come back up for the board to vote on if they are wanting to make a change.
Were there any other items in there?
So, one quick question.
Uh-huh.
So you would have a choice of what alderman you got? Is that what you're?
No. The aldermen will vote. The person, he's sitting here because the alderman voted him.
No.
Oh, you
No.
okay.
Mayoral appointment.
Appointed that position.
Okay.
Because the mayor come, I mean, I've seen this happen several times. I mean, that's the way they've taken people off this board, which I'm sure you may, I don't know if you was even involved in that or not. I mean, that was kind of like a closed door meeting. Hey, we're going to do this. This is what I'm going to do. Blah 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 blah. And I've seen it happen. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's not really the way that. But I'm great with it.
Yeah,
it's just cool
and-
because like we had Judy here for just a little bit. We had we had
Wayne.
Wayne.
Yeah,
We had
Fred
Wayne.
Wayne,
I
yeah.
think
we
the
had him
mayor's
here
made
for
the
this-
appointment, but doesn't he pass it in front of the board? I can't remember.
And to
now.
be quite frank, I misspoke. I'm so used to the planning commission.
Yeah, which is how that works.
Right. And that's how it works with the planning commission. It's
And that's how I think
literally
we should do it
a
here.
Yeah, and it makes more sense. In our community, given where we're at, how we're growing, and how important this committee is going to continue to be, it only makes sense. That the board actually have an annual election. They elect their planning commission. They elect they actually elect the mayor pro tem. So that would just be another one of those elections. It all resolves it in one meeting. It's done, and we move forward. So with that being said, then I can have that ready for the next meeting. Ultimately, some of these bylaws we can implement. Some of them may be best to wait until we actually get through the ordinance revision process, because if something doesn't change or the board recommends different tweaks to it, we'll want to come back and redo bylaws based upon what our ordinance says. You always start with the organic charter document. For us, it's this. Constitution, everything refers back to it. This statute, or this ordinance is our Constitution, and we can do anything that this says we can't do. We can do anything that this says we can. If it says we can't do it, we can't do it. Everything else, you're free to do it. As it relates to bylaws, how you want to operate. If you wanted to create mini subcommittees or whatever, get into a whole other scenario, as you see in the later part of my explanation. That gets us into compliance issues with the sunshine law that just, as Alderman Blomker can attest, we're having we've got a search committee for the new city administrator. That search committee has to comply with the sunshine law. So every time they meet, well, if you got a committee of this group that had, say, 3 private citizens, if you 3 were on it, and you 2 ended up meeting at his restaurant, he's not there, but you guys sit down and start talking about whatever the committee did, it's a violation of sunshine. City's subject to a penalty, and all those things that we just don't, because it wasn't advertised 24 hours in advance. Sunshine law does restrict what we do here in this building and from this building. So, are there any thoughts, questions, concerns about that direction? Want to go with the bylaws tonight? Do you want to wait until we get the ordinance?
Personally, I think what's written here is proposed bylaws. It's all in line with what we're talking about. Creation of a vice chairman. That's what you're talking about by bylaws? Is that the...
Yeah. The proposed bylaws, we had talked about creating a chair and a vice chair, and the term of that position, how long that position is, which is, we can say they shall sit for 1 year in the bylaw, but currently our organic ordinance says that...
right, but I mean, if we're revising the organic...
Right, so once we revise that, then these can all...
You can't do it all at once.
Well, ultimately, the ordinance itself, we can make that recommendation, and it'll go up to the Board of Aldermen, but till it changes, we can't do some of these. Because I guess we can implement them, we can approve them. If
so
changes don't happen, then we just can't use them.
All right, so
I'm
the
happy to
question
carry
is, do we
forward
want to
these
discuss...
changes. I mean, I'm happy to carry forward these changes. I mean, these are all relatively straightforward.
Yeah, sure. Well, we can get that drafted. Well, here's the other aspect of it. You have the framework. If you want to move it on an expedited fashion, I can get something drafted. I would prefer to make those changes and have you all see them and vote on them with a definitive recommendation.
Well, I think the schedule that we'd like them to meet is the April timeframe.
Ahead of April. Yeah. Then this will allow us to do that. January 26th, 7th, 8th, whenever that meeting is, we will be able to make that recommendation. That means we will then be able to get it on the February board meeting for the first reading, the second meeting in February for the second reading. We've got March and April. We're still good to go. The February meeting would then allow us to make the bylaw changes. Okay?
Sounds good. Any more comments on that? If we can discuss the bylaws after that.
If you have more thoughts on ideas, send them to Micah or myself on bylaws on how you want to operate. We can certainly get something drafted to put into the pool of voting items when we get there. Okay.
Okay, next item, advertising in Missouri Life Motorcycle Guide for 2018.
Fortunately, Rusty is not here. He was going to be driving this one with getting us the information.
Okay,
The last meeting, he was supposed to be providing some contact stuff to us. I don't know that he ever got it to us.
Didn't. I know, from the discussion we had, the talk last year had been splitting a page 4 ways, essentially, with local businesses. And we could attempt to basically recruit those businesses so that they can get some good advertising in the motorcycle guide. It does go out statewide. It puts Smithville and the park into the minds of quite a few people, actually, because we do have a lot of motorcyclists that come through for the trails. So, I don't think it's a bad idea, we just need to we need to know who we need to be in contact with and see if we can find some interested businesses.
And the biggest concern I've always had with this scenario is it'd be wonderful if we could have been selling this position before we got to this point where we've got to make the buy.
Because I was a big part of making it happen last year.
Yeah.
Throwing it together last minute was really frustrating. It started it continued the conversation of actually getting a marketing and advertising firm involved for one simple picture. You know, I would recommend we wait until, and maybe this is a great project for our marketing and advertising firm to work on for next year and start early and do it right. I still have boxes of them in the chamber. They were very well received and we use them and we pass them out all the time, but we still have enough to probably get us through this year.
Yes,
I think we should do it right next year and continue to distribute what we have.
I'll second that motion.
It's not a motion, but that's my opinion.
It was close. I'm going to run with it. I got a date to get to, so I'll second the motion.
okay. Well, table it until the next time.
Yeah, table it.
Yeah, table it until we address it next. I don't know. I mean, it was kind of we had to have it by the end of the year.
And that's where we're at
Yeah.
this again.
The end of the year is near.
Pretty icy.
Yeah, I don't even know in the scenario we're at, unless you guys have a motion to actually approve it, we don't even have to have a motion to not do it. It's just a scenario, we'll work on it and do it right.
You know, and there's nothing to stop, local businesses from advertising in you guys.
It's still
And
a
that's
great idea.
true, yeah.
An opportunity, and
And
we
that's
took
something
our.
that we can share with our different
What would it hurt
businesses.
to try to do the exact same thing that we did in Alaska?
Probably just copy what we have.
Well, because what was the cost, $6,500, $5,500? And that
That was the city's bought even after the.
yeah, the
business
city
was-
bought the whole package, and then we were gonna sell.
But you didn't sell.
We
It
put
was
something.
we were too late on the deadline. It was
Yeah,
too tight.
we were too close to the deadline of when we had to make the buy, that we didn't do the work ahead of time. Hey, we've got this coming
Line
up
up the
in the summer.
vendors, yeah.
And what I would prefer to see the city do is, we'll do the
Do a one
page, the $1,500 fee,
Yeah.
and you guys all get together, and you get 15 of them,
And if anyone else
then
wants
you
to
can have more than
advertise,
4 pages.
Right.
They can all get a
split a
full.
page, you can
Right.
have a full page.
But I think getting the route in and then the other portion of it relates to the city itself. But we had that and 2 or 3 pages of ads that we had to buy and never sold. So being the facilitator, I think, is a great idea.
We need to get it planned out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think we're there.
Table this.
Yeah.
Okay. Next item is community investment program amendments.
And at the back of your packet, you have a red line version, but there's also a highlighted version, because I didn't print in color for whatever reason. It actually has an additional little item in it, so I'm going to suggest you go to the highlighted version there.
Version works.
These are, Jack asked me to go through and sort of assess the special event assistance policy and the application for it to see where we might be able to make some improvements and make it easier on people that are applying, but also make our role more clear. And so that's sort of what I've highlighted here. First off, we had a discussion about probably needing to rename the program, because it currently has the initial CIP, which in government can stand for about 7 different things, and some of them aren't necessarily more important, but they're more common than this community improvement program. So I would suggest a switch of the name, potentially to something simple like community grant program. It's a small change, but it makes it easier to identify outside of the CIP realm. So, if you look down to the first highlight, I have taken out the initial budget because, first off, hopefully, if this becomes a more routine thing, that budget will grow, ideally. And second off, I think it sets a bad expectation for us to say, hey, we have 10,000, how much of it do you want? I think if we're going to have any amount in there, it needs to be a cap per event, and that would have to be discussed by this committee to decide what an appropriate cap would be. We don't even necessarily have to put a cap in there, but that opens up the realm of some people going, oh, well, I have a $20,000 festival I want to put on, you could pay for all of it. Obviously, it's not going to be justified, more than likely, but the clearer guidelines we can make, the more easily people can make use of it.
3?
Yeah, number 3 down at the bottom there. So this one was really unclear because it talked about staff will disperse funds, and then it mentions upon receipt of applicable submissions, receipts, invoices, that sort of stuff. So just switch the language here to clarify a little bit. So staff will issue an award letter, and then upon receipt, only upon receipt of applicable submissions, receipts, invoices, proof of expenditures, will any funds be dispersed. That way people understand it's after the fact. You pay for it out of pocket, and then we will reimburse you for it. So you can't come to us and say, we're going to do $5,000 worth of food and drink. We need help with it. Okay. You still have to be able to support that yourself, and then we will reimburse it. We also probably ought to add in there a specific person for them to contact. It would probably be our finance director, since they're submitting receipts and invoices, and he could be the one to quickly check those and issue a check. So,
do you think that would be best in the policy or on the application?
I think we could do it either way. It would probably be best to put it on the application.
The policy is usually the last thing. They go back to answer questions.
Right, yeah. I mean, the policy is more of the guidelines for what's laid out there. It's not necessarily some of the specifics for how it's, who it's going to.
Well, and can it even be as simple as scan and email, or email receipts to this email address? I just was the go-between for a lot of that, and then it was, where's my check, and what do I do?
Right.
And so everybody was emailing me all their receipts.
Yeah, none of this has to be huge. We don't need a paragraph. I mean, it could be an email or a single sentence or two down at the bottom of the application saying, remember or reminder, email all receipts to...
Yeah, or we can put that in the award letter.
Yeah, that's where it goes.
Yeah, it can go anywhere so long as we give them a specific contact.
Yeah, just one point of contact will help.
Absolutely, we don't need...
Because if you give them an email here, they may email with questions to Dan, who probably can't answer.
Yeah, and actually, we should probably put my email in the guidelines, because I'm probably going to be the one answering most of the questions, since that's going to be part of what I do, is sort of doing that initial assessment. So. On the back of that page, under the evaluation criteria, number 1, it says the applicant must be a not-for-profit or non-profit entity that provides current IRS determination letter with the initial application. Do we want to give any further explanation? I mean, it doesn't have to be a paragraph, but do we want to explain, under state and federal law, the city cannot reimburse funds to for-profit entities, something like that?
Well, and ultimately, depending on the circumstances, if we have an agreement in place, we can do that. But this one was in there because the concept when we adopted this was, no, let's do this nonprofit stuff. For-profit businesses, they're in it for the money. They're not doing it for whatever else. So, we get the added benefit if it's a for-profit venture of bringing people to our community. But it's these nonprofit Lions Club, Rotary Club, whomever they may be, clubs, as long as they're nonprofit, they can use these as their fundraiser. We get the benefit of more people coming to our town. More people that hit the tourism cycle that Lee has been talking about for so much time.
So you feel it needs more explanation?
I think it could do with a little more explanation, just to clarify either.
Kind of like what he just said.
Right, yeah, either that we're purposefully limiting this to nonprofit, not-for-profit, or, you must have one of these two qualifications, either a for-profit that has, whatever. And that's the thing, is it would have to be
Partnership
more
agreement
specific.
or whatever.
There was somebody that was sitting on the board that was different than what we have now. They was actually naming the different profit deals, the 401, whatever, and we actually had those listed out originally when we sent that document in.
The St. Joseph.
So it was like,
Having a 501c3
St. Joseph document that we
status.
modeled it after, I think had.
Yes.
right, we actually had, I don't think it was.
We were talking about.
We actually had made a little, we'd actually made a little list of what our
Yeah,
criteria
C10.
was looking for.
Lodges.
Yeah.
So maybe instead of, we could, this is what we're looking for rather than.
Yeah,
that's
but
why
maybe-
we came back to this.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah, and
we
I
could
think-
put
I think
you
this
must
is
have
fine.
501c3 status or XXX.
Yeah.
And let me ask you this, so you guys can, because I don't disagree with Mike, it would be nice to have it in there.
But do we need it?
Do we need it from the standpoint, do we really think that Dan is going to come down trying to get the city to help him on he's going to have a
I
festival?
remember this conversation, and it was an event organizer from outside of the city having an event in Smithville, creating an economic impact in Smithville. So we were trying to set boundaries of, we don't want to give our community money to an entity outside of the city. So we were trying to set some parameters on that. So.
Well, and I think the other aspect of it is, it will be very difficult for the average event to generate enough sales tax to even pay for what we're giving. It's the feeling, it's the quality of life that we're getting. $1,500 grant, calculate that in sales tax. If you're getting $1,500 and we're at 1.5% total sales tax, how much sales do they need to make in your community in order to break even as a community? So that's,
150,000.
from a for-profit standpoint, that's where you're at. Now, if it's a not-for-profit,
Sounds like a
it
very
brings
different
people in. So,
Yeah, it's more, as you say, it's about that quality of life and becoming known for
Sorry, Alex.
having active residents that want to do fun things in the community.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily about making money, but it is about creating the community that we want. So.
I say yes to all of them.
Okay, so like I said, I don't necessarily know that we need a further explanation there. It's more just if any clarification, if we have people that are confused by that, we're going to have to clarify why they need an IRS determination.
and ultimately, that probably best on a case by case.
Yeah. Okay. On the next page, I have a huge list of policy inclusions. Now, this is modeled partially after the St. Joe guidelines that this was sort of based on. They include statements of responsibilities for a lot of the things that are likely to occur with these events that interact with city ordinance. So things like complying with city ordinance, that they have to do it. They still have to pay permits and other associated costs. They have to provide notifications to the city. They have to give clearance around emergency services, requirements for running their own wiring, blocking sidewalks and driveways, that sort of stuff. So do we want those either explicitly in this policy so that they don't have to go looking for it elsewhere, and so they don't have an excuse to say, oh, I didn't know I had that responsibility? Or do we just want to say, you can reference these city ordinances for your requirements?
So don't they have to meet that when they sign up to use the facilities anyway, right?
Theoretically,
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
But some might not
Right.
be a special event. Like one of the groups last year that was wanting, put in an application was Santa, it was over at the Legion, and it was breakfast with Santa. So they technically would never fill out a special event form or
Yeah.
any paperwork.
Yeah.
I mean, because I thought, that was one I didn't talk to you about yesterday. I was like, there can potentially be events that will happen that
we might
are
want to support.
community event. They are a local nonprofit or whatever. They're putting on something that is creative, but they're,
I mean,
It may
even if
not
it's
involve-
just an issue of covering our own butts, having the policy stated twice can't hurt. Whether they read it, whether they follow it, we can't mandate them to do that. But putting it in the policy would probably be a good idea.
Well, given my prior profession and history, I would recommend that we put all of that right above their signature on the application.
Okay, form it into a paragraph saying they'll comply with
Yeah,
this.
you
this,
agree to
this,
do all
this.
this, sign your name, and you're eligible. That gets us where we're at. We don't have to put it in the policy. That
For
way-
listing, fire containment policy.
Yeah. Yeah.
One I
Depending,
gotta fill out all
and a
the
lot of
time.
it will likely be, to be quite frank, a lot of it will likely be waived because it's going to be a small enough event that we're not going to have to worry about
Right.
a lot of that.
Unless we get a.
You're gonna smoke inside your smoker and not cool grounds if they can.
Which we may.
Yeah. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to ask about on the policy is, I think Leah had told me that previously there had been a discussion about waiving fees for events that go through this process. And I'm torn on that because it's not in the policy right now, and I'm sort of torn. Because I see the benefit of saying, okay, if this is a non-for-profit, you're running an event to be a fundraiser or that's going to bring people to the city, that sort of stuff, great. But the problem is those fees are generally supposed to cover incidental costs, and we don't. For instance, if they use a vendor from outside the city, like a lot of them do, we never see any of that sales tax income. We never see any of that come back that could cover those incidentals. And so it becomes a function of, are we shooting ourselves in the foot and losing even more money potentially if something does go wrong, if they tear up the grounds or spray paint where they shouldn't or whatever.
I think the discussion last year, if I remember right, was people asking for funding to pay the fees.
when we were choosing the amount to award, one of the things that we had included was waiving any fees. And some of this came from St. Joe's paperwork on, they had itemized things that you could waive. So we had recommended
The in-kind part is what.
Well, rather than give out a large sum of money when we were dividing it, we was helping people by waiving fees. And to be honest, that might be more important than actually giving money on some of this. That may be the more logical thing to look at because we got I don't know, I think we got some negative stuff back on that. Some of that hit back, because we didn't give people money or we didn't do that. So what makes us want to do that again, or what makes us want to spend our time to review that policy if it's having a negative impact on the city other than what little bit of people we're bringing in? It's costing us money to do it, other than helping them put on the event by maybe giving them some of the things that they need might be enough.
Right, and ultimately, I would see, and this boils down to traffic control. This is what this is always about, is traffic control. I would suggest, if we're going to look at it from that perspective, we don't fund any of this policy. Allow us to spend $10,000 and buy the traffic control stuff that we don't have to allow us to do this. Because we don't have it. That's why the city street department is so leery of putting this stuff out. Because if there's a festival going on and a major water leak occurs, we have to close a road.
So
we have to come pull it.
We had this discussion last year.
I remember this
And I
discussion.
thought we were buying.
Yeah, I thought we had to.
I don't think it was put in the budget that way. When we did the budget, yeah, we would need to buy.
But Was that
Was that part of streetscape discussion on the pop-ups?
Right, this conversation, we've discussed it, there's never been a resolution, because I know it wasn't in the budget. Because that was my point to, and then
Yeah,
Steve
I don't think we
Garrett,
put
shouldn't
the
this
past
be in the
talking
budget, and if we didn't
If
get
I
it.
might, the board is considering putting on a transportation sales tax initiative on the April budget. And funds could be used to help with transportation-related issues.
Capital related, but ultimately what that would do would free up existing capital that we have that is intended to fix or make the streetscape happen, replace the bridge, those kinds of things. If there are funding,
Now, my police department in Kansas City, where I worked before, had barricades that were used for parades and whatnot.
yeah.
Is there, I mean, to get these barricades that we can use downtown to block the streets, is there any budget in the police department that can get those so that they're stored
I
right
do
here?
feel like there's a safety issue. Ever since our community events, our event organizers have been barricading the streets. I've seen cars coming right down through the homecoming parade. I got stuck. I could not get out of this whole intersection. I mean, there's a safety issue for sure.
Absolutely, and I will tell you, the way it occurred before was the street department came out and set them on the corner. Unstacked up, not put up, put them down. So the only thing that has changed related to safety is who pays for those.
Yeah.
That's literally it. Because our guys never set them up, never took them down. Whoever, the street department would set 2 type 1s on this corner, 2 type 1s on this corner.
Do we not have enough,
That's the problem. We don't have enough.
even now, with Johnny and whoever?
Now with Johnny's stuff, that was part of the other reason we went this direction, because Johnny bought all that stuff when that process happened in 15 or 16.
We contributed.
Right. So we've got a whole bunch of them already bought by the chamber and Johnny V. Brock. And I think Johnny he looked at it as a potential revenue source. He could lease them out to folks at next to nothing comparatively. Because he bought them. That's why he went and bought them. I mean, if we were going to buy them, we ought to buy his. Or look at it from that perspective. Right, I'm sure he would. Or put it into private practice. Let Johnny V. Brock and the chamber, however that
I don't
works.
think he wants to continue doing it, though. I think he does it because it's
Just helps
An unmet need.
It's okay.
yeah.
Let's find out how much it would take to
I
acquire.
really do feel like there's some safety issues involved with how our streets are being shut down and protecting
Are
our
those
citizens.
good enough quality that they could be passed out like by the police department or what? I mean,
Well,
to the police department,
these are the type 1. These are the full
Same ones that we
size.
have, right?
So
Yeah.
what would it take? How could we as a group figure it out to where we could get those donated to the police department? To where it was their responsibility? Jason would probably
I
kill
think
me.
it's
but-
that's a conversation that needs to be had by.
Right, because
others on
I mean,
it.
the
for
police
example,
department
the
provide training?
school, when they have their, if we go back to that, when the school has their homecoming, every employee in a vehicle in the city is on duty, stopping at the intersections, because every barricade's up, but everybody ignores them. I just gotta go through. I just want to get over
the
there.
same everywhere.
Right.
On the
So
planet.
we had to have a city employee sitting there during the entire time, and that became the norm. Well, when you have everybody in the water department, everybody in the sewer department, every street employee, every building inspector, and all the police on duty at various intersections, keeping people from not driving around with a sign that says road closed, it got pretty difficult. Now, when the school, they've been doing, we notified the school with the new program. What do I need? Here's a contact. They contacted him. Is this what the area is? We worked with Dennis. quit, our guy who's got training in this. He said, here's what you need here in this area, and this is, they had them delivered, set up, and the same company came back and picked them up, took them away. All for a fee. Not a single department had to shut down to allow it to happen.
So then the concern is for these nonprofits that are lucky to make a $3,000 profit when you're putting in a ton of money, $1,500 of that goes to street barricades. I mean, then it goes right back to this program. I mean,
Let's see what it would take to acquire those.
Yeah, and ultimately acquire them. Yeah, that's an issue. But the bigger thing for me is, if we've got them, who's putting them up?
And I understand
You know,
that.
and-
too.
Yeah,
I got that, but
I totally
You're
understand.
talking about the liability side.
But I do,
Just getting it done.
Well, no, I'm talking about taking street department guys away from doing street department work and setting up
Well,
barricades
it
to
brings
close
us
the
back,
professor.
it brings us back to the fees issue, because when you're talking about leasing from another company, that's a reimbursable expense that they can already submit. If they're leasing through this company that we.
What happens if that guy's already got it leased out, you know?
Well, any company.
Right.
Okay, any company, that would be a reimbursable expense, and they could recoup that money. But if the city owns it and the city's setting them up, most cities are going to have a fee for that because it's use of city property and city employees' time. And so the question becomes, do we inherently waive that in the policy, or do we say, you know, the use of the city resources still has to be compensated? That's where it comes back to as far as the fees.
Yeah, because it's real easy to calculate the expense to the city when it's a $1,500 grant. It's not as easy when it's 4 employees, 2 hours of work, doing this in that area, and it will change literally for every application because it depends on how many streets they're closing. So we don't, it's hard for us to actually budget for not only the expense, but the time. We've got folks doing this, so, and it's generally not that much time, but 2 hours to get it all in, set up. It kind of depends on.
I don't know that there's a good answer we can come up with tonight.
Yeah, I certainly don't think we can come up for tonight. The main thing was, we've got some issues that we want to have a general direction. Right now, we know where we were last year. We haven't made any tweaks completely yet, but we can certainly, we want to have a meeting. We want to get these folks applications well in advance so that hopefully before March is over, everybody's got an award letter that has applied.
I'd like to have a new version of this document with everything in it that needs to be in it by, I don't know, heard by New Year's, but by mid-January, so that
For the next
people
time.
can fill them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. We can certainly have it at the end of January. Some of these things you guys may be able to say fine on. Let's move forward with that. We'll worry about the other ones later.
so from our perspective of reading these and trying to award money, like this entire bottom section, leadership team for the event, is that necessary?
And that's the other thing, is if there's anything that you haven't found useful, let's put.
I don't feel
'Cause I
like
wasn't
this
here last year,
bottom
so.
portion was useful, and I'd like more room for name and address.
Okay?
I don't, for me, it didn't really, unless there's a reason for the leadership team for the event. I mean, we know it's lines, but we don't have some nights.
Well, and the number of organizations, groups involved,
I don't know, yeah,
Guess I don't have that.
I don't know that that is,
Oh,
Should be attached
it's
to
the
that.
yellow one. It's the one with yellow feet.
I would like to see
There you go.
maybe that.
Last 2
eliminated and
pages.
this all spread out for them to fill it in more, because they struggled to fill this out. It was hard to read some of it. I mean,
yeah. And I mean, some of these long-term benefit, experience of the team, that can be useful. Do we want sponsors and partners? I mean, it can be good information, although it doesn't necessarily affect.
It'd be a good data collection to see who's willing to.
Good point.
There in the middle, estimated economic impact. Leah said that a lot of people have trouble filling that out because they don't, how are they supposed to know how to calculate that, which is fair. I mean, that makes sense. Do we want to eliminate that completely and do that sort of in-house, assessing what we think the economic impact would be? Or do we want to put that onus on them with a simple formula, like number of people you're expecting to attend and the average expenditure at an event like this, which we could even provide a table of average expenditures. I mean, those are out there. But
Yeah, and I think,
there are some calculators online, but they're more complex than what we need. I searched everywhere.
okay, that's what I was.
Most of them are
Yeah.
more complex than what we need.
I think we talked about this last year.
Jeff, I'm too bad he just left because he.
I talked
I mean,
to
basically, what we want to ask is the variables of the equation.
Right.
They fill that out and we calculate.
Yeah, and because we're already asking them the number of people expected to attend from in Smithville and outside Smithville. We could have internally a table of average expenditure
Yeah,
based on
that's,
that.
I mean, we
that
calculate
we can calculate, and then
consistently.
if we
It's
want
not a
to apply an
guess.
economic multiplier, we can, but that's honestly a little more advanced than we probably need. So we could probably get rid of that and just do the calculation here when we do a determination. But
Yeah, so if they can identify, if they can provide what the population will be and maybe even, I mean, heck, the average expenditure, we could probably throw that in ourselves anyway. I mean, so.
right.
Well, and if I recall correctly, the State Joe application had 2 levels of that. It was citizens anticipated to come, and how many people do you think are coming from outside of Smithville?
Yeah, because
That's the tourism.
it discounts. Yeah, what it does is you reduce the economic impact by a percentage equivalent to non-resident or to the resident percentage, because they would probably come in.
And that's something in the application side, that's not part of the policy.
It doesn't
That's
need to be there. Yeah.
Right, but we can put how many local residents do you anticipate will
Where?
come? And how many non-residents?
And
Yeah,
there's
an example of that is that, I guess, that festival that's held annually. Yeah, EMI.
Yeah.
I mean, so
Yeah.
I think he had a pretty good idea how many.
Yeah, well, here's the other thing. David's done it enough. He actually can do the economic impact.
Yeah, he has a general.
He does
In fact,
that
I just
too.
talked to him this morning. But.
Yeah.
So, do we want to get rid of the economic impact and just do that in-house then?
Oh,
I
it's
think
above
we
it, several
asked
lines
the
above it.
questions.
I'm sorry.
I mean, that's something that when that
Simplified.
Oh, yeah, it's already asked
yeah,
about it.
that's something that when the application comes to me, I can pull the table and write
Yeah.
down for you guys the projected.
Figure it
For office use only. box.
Right. That's what I was thinking. That's
Yeah.
just kept
You're not
popping through
writing
my
the
head.
space.
It's in the very bottom.
Yeah.
So, like this hard experience of the team running the event,
Like I said, it's up to
I
you
would
guys.
rather know how many times has this event been held.
Okay.
And I think here's the only caveat to that is, you may recall last year, or maybe it was the year before, we had a long amount of time, staff did discussions, negotiations, evaluations for a festival that ended up going to Kansas City.
Yeah.
And it was the 7th annual, its 7th year. It had been in 6
That's
different
true.
communities. So that would be beneficial to know who the main entities are, who are the primary drivers of this, and how many times have you had it. And that one was kind of crucial information.
So maybe
They
incorporate
apparently knew what they were
leadership
doing.
team for the
Or
event,
not.
organizations involved, and
6 different locations.
history of the event, all in one.
Okay.
I think a list of sponsors, partners is appropriate too, because if the event organizers have sponsors that are paying.
Right. If they've already.
Well, and this is where it comes down to one thing that we
Can't say it wasn't, right?
needed, without a doubt, was we want to see their event budget. Because there were so many opportunities that we were like, oh, we really would like to apply this towards marketing, or I wonder what they're spending on marketing. We really, really needed a budget.
Well, and the thing is, we already asked how the event's funded, private, earned income, public. Presumably, if they've done due diligence in any way, shape, or form, they'll have at least a basic budget based on how they're getting their funding in the first place.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't be asking for that, tough a sell for them to attach a budget, and that gives us more information for where we can help.
So
Well,
do
and
they,
this
do they need to know
program-
what that budget should look like?
Yeah, well,
We-
this
we
program
can
is
provide
intended.
in the policy, we can provide like a suggested
Maybe
items.
certain categories
Yeah,
or items
suggested
that-
categories.
It's just some sort of line item budget. I mean, it doesn't
Right,
have to be,
right.
we didn't need much when we was looking at this, but
It's
just.
probably like a half a dozen items.
Well, here's the other aspect from, if you have a requirement that they provide you their budget, you've got a substantial higher likelihood that they're going to have been doing some kind of planning.
Well, and
Right.
this is the
Yeah,
intent
that's
of
what I
this
mean.
program, is to invest in some of our really good events to help
Yeah,
them
Right,
grow.
right.
We don't, I mean, much as we like for anybody that really wants to be able to throw a nice event, this is, the intention is for us to have return events that increase quality every year, because they have thought going into it.
Yeah.
So, okay, so attaching the proposed budget is fine. The amount requesting,
That needs to come off.
the amount they're
That
requesting,
was a
That,
real
you need to take that
problem
line
for us.
that's
completely
fine.
out.
I think-
I would like to,
Block
that was
that
a real problem for
That
us.
was your guess.
Like I said, I wasn't here for that. so-
I want to know what do you need this money for? Or what would you do with this money?
Yeah,
What would they use it for?
yeah.
Yeah.
What, no, we need it that different, we need, how would it improve your event? I'm not saying that right.
No, I get you. I
Do
get
you understand what I'm saying? What
yeah.
could you improve with your event with additional funding?
Right. Okay.
Something on that.
Yeah, because I think we need to keep in mind, we're going into this assuming this event's going to happen. Now, last time we had a lot of, I think a lot of the stuff was, hey, if I get this money, I can have this event.
Right. But again, that's people misunderstanding that it's
Right.
like a reimbursement after.
Right, right.
And that, maybe that needs to be in there somewhere. Do you understand that?
It is.
It could be part of the signature line again,
Yeah.
Right.
bolded and underlined.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't know, it just.
Yeah, I don't think it was clear in the policy. Like it's
And
gonna be.
I think we
I think
clarified
you've
that
rewritten
some.
that nicely.
Okay, and then the last thing, and this is again part of the St. Joe document, but I think it actually makes sense. Are there any other quick facts that we might need to know about these events that might influence our decision in house? For instance, are they serving food or alcohol? Do they already have vendors? Do they need a police escort for a parade or that sort of thing? Do they need electricity, and are they providing it themselves through wiring, or do they need us to somehow set something up? Do they even need any sort of road blockage? And are they going to use ours or have a company do that?
What about like operational hours? Your morning events?
That's actually a great one that's not on here.
Late night events.
Frame, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, 'cause that
time frame's
does
not
change-
anywhere on here. That's
And
a,
that does change the
Yeah.
economic impact, potentially.
Yeah, I lost a whole event because they started at 8 o'clock in the morning and were done by the time we opened. Car show.
oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm like, this is ridiculous. Why are you guys out here at
That's good.
7
Yeah.
o'clock in the morning to 11? Done.
Yeah, nobody eats barbecue that early.
They all wanted to come in and get drinks.
Yeah.
I don't get much off of,
Yeah.
I don't get enough off
Yeah,
of
bring
30
a cooler
sodas.
if you're wanting to drink a
You open up at 8, I will eat brisket at 8. I'm telling you.
I can't have brisket ready at 8 o'clock in the morning unless I pay somebody coming at 5.
Yeah, he's not going to start, he's not going to get up at 2 o'clock.
Not
That
just
was
for
a
me.
breakfast brisket burrito. That would be good.
Brisket with brisket sandwich with latkes is the.
I guess we're getting a little off.
Anyway, so is that? I mean, do we feel like that's going to clean up this application enough that it's going to be useful? Are there any others that we
Looking at
haven't
once you get it done.
Huh?
It'd be worth looking at once you get it done.
Well, and I
Put
got
a little rough draft together
Right,
or something.
I've got to know what we needed for and what wasn't needed, what needs to go out first. But I can certainly get this back to a front and back page.
Did you get a chance to look at any of the applications from last year?
A couple of things.
That, I was going to say, that would probably help you on that a lot.
Yeah, and I could see where people struggled, and I could see where they did all right. But it didn't give me any insight into what you guys actually found useful. So that's part of why I need to bring
Well, I
this up.
think Leah, Marshall, and I were pretty much the ones that looked at those.
Yeah.
Because we kind of formed a little subcommittee.
Yeah.
Will this document be accessible like, online? They can download it, they can fill it out.
Yeah,
they can request
the
it?
assumption is that this will be on the city website. that we can, you know,
And to
somebody.
be quite frank, we can make it a fillable.
I can make it a fillable PDF, and it can, when they hit submit on it, it can email directly to me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's,
Give
I'm
them
gonna
the
make
sign,
it,
print it,
I'm
them
gonna make it
sign
as
and send it.
simple as possible. Well, and I can even put instructions in the policy for electronic signing if they want, because there's lots of easy ways to do that now, so.
So I would say be cautious on some of this because it's opening us up to stuff we might not provide.
Right. Well, and that's why I said, you know, this is not necessarily stuff we would provide, it's more, will any of these influence our side of the
And
decision?
food and alcohol will.
Food and alcohol definitely will.
I'll do that.
Whether they need a police escort, I mean, does that impact us any? Okay, so whether they need electricity,
Yeah.
and then whether they need to block the road. I mean, I think those are probably all considerations for both whether they've planned everything properly and whether they're going to be cutting off certain economic venues as they bring in new people. Right? So,
Right. Yeah, if they're gonna shut down the entire downtown and they're expecting 450 people here, and we have 2,000 cars a day that can't get through, you know.
So are we wanting them to provide a diagram?
that's one of the things
I don't know that we need that much information in this. We're gonna have that application. If they wanna close streets, they have to
Yes.
go through that
And
process anyway.
that's why I asked about the policy inclusion, because one of those on there, like St. Joe mentions, for instance, is you have to have a layout sketch. You have to have a security list. And those are things that the city requires separately during their normal
Is
permit
there
process.
a template for the basic street closures that they do downtown?
Yeah, we, as part of this, when Johnny bought his stuff, that I asked our guy he's a certified trainer for temporary traffic control. Draw me up what's needed for these closures. If you're closing this street, if you're closing this street, if you're closing this street, what's it need? Now, the significant thing for us is, in a year or two, assuming the streetscape project goes through, a lot of this gets a little easier,
Yeah.
especially downtown.
Yeah,
You don't need to have 10 barricades running across over Mill Street because everybody wants to. I just need to go.
Right. Everybody always says that, though.
Yeah, I just need to.
They're like ants. They can't.
Yeah.
They deviate
I always
from
go
the
this
path.
way.
Okay, so, ready to move on?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, Micah, do you have enough to?
I've got enough that I can draft some policy, some changes to the policy and the application, and I can.
Okay. So I guess ultimately, then he's got enough to make the tweaks. Do we need? He's got a shorter timeline than I think what we have available.
It doesn't have to be approved by this board, does it?
The application doesn't, certainly, but the policy changes
Yeah.
would. Now, I don't know that there's any significance. We made it through the $10,000 stuff the first time through. I think if the and some of the folks already know what the program is going to be is like. If we clean up the application with the information that has just been discussed,
Because the policy changes are just,
Yeah,
are just
I think,
clarification.
I agree. I think the application can be made available
Yeah.
almost like it is, but I think you can clean it up,
Right.
improve on it,
right,
and then we can bring that policy back and approve that.
right, then we can do the policy. He can have the policy ready for
That will
the
at least,
January meeting.
that'll let people get started on applying on that. If there's any significant changes to the application, then we can maybe go back and ask those that, if we need, required information that we didn't have. And
Yeah.
that would be a good way to go, I think.
Yeah, and when we do the release of the actual application and notice people up, hey, we've got the program is coming again. You can go to this link from social media. Here's the link directly to the document on. It's fillable. Fill it out. Send it by email, electronic signature, whatever. And we get, from that perspective, we get the stuff out there. And the application is going to give them the metrics of what they need to have. Especially if we take away how much are you asking for. I think that's probably the best, I mean, that was the most frustrating thing you guys had.
It set expectations.
Right.
People were disappointed.
And then you disappoint people, that's the problem. You know?
Yeah.
Why,
Yep.
why build people up to disappoint? You know, that's just not.
So one of the concerns last year was that it wasn't communicated, and understandably, we were rolling it out and doing the best we could, is informing everyone that it is out there. So do you want maybe the two of us to partner and go? We in January last year at one of the Heritage Business District meetings invited all of our event organizers to their meeting. We sat down, you and I could roll it out. And it's a great opportunity to pass a calendar around for everyone to put their events on the calendar, which we did
Well,
last
the
year.
other aspect of it is, we can send direct mail, because we have award letters for all the people that got it.
Yeah, we can send direct mail to those that have already applied or were awarded. We can roll it out at the Heritage event. We can advertise it on social media, and we can push it. We'll push it everywhere we can.
Yeah.
It was just very beneficial to have all of our event organizers meet together and pass the calendar around and make sure there weren't any conflicting dates on stuff. And for me, it was like, if you want to be on my community calendar, here's your chance to get on there now. So, and it helps us to know what to plan for the
And
year.
with the new website, people will be able to submit events.
Yeah. Yep. So,
Okay, the next item is public comment. I wanted to, actually though, but who's online? Is there any comments, or does anyone want to submit a comment?
Charlene Bruce asked generally if there were any concerns about the Christmas parade. She felt it was very successful, brought a great crowd to the community. She said she really appreciated the grant from the committee. Says they wouldn't have been able to put it on without that funding. So again, this program in action. I think that's pretty much all of it. We've had a couple people just commenting in general, but
Okay, because this might be the way we do public comments.
that's kind of what I'm pushing for.
Or maybe earlier in the program.
We've got real comments in there.
Yeah.
But and to respond to Charlene, I heard nothing but wonderful things. And it'll get better and better, and you learn as you go, but it was phenomenal. It's a great event.
Yeah.
Yeah. They did a great job.
Okay, now, next item is new business for our agenda next meeting in January.
I'll have proposed policy changes for the CIP, but that's,
Or did we rename it?
but yeah, for this, well,
CGP?
that would be part of the proposal, is changing the name of the program.
I will tell you, I didn't respond to it the first time. I'm like, well, I don't think anything to do with CIP, so I went right past it.
When I said the
Yeah.
email, yeah.
So it's a CG, CGP.
Yeah, my proposal will probably be the community grant
I
program.
think it's a good,
So,
more descriptive. So the meeting, I mean, we're on Wednesday because of the holiday, right? Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, we
So
vote.
it'll be Tuesday, the 23rd of January would be our normal fourth Tuesday. I got that right.
I believe you.
And then I think, I saw something, I think, I don't know, was it, should we start our annual review of the strategic plan?
Well, at the last meeting, we
That was-
highlighted where we were. What we'll do in January, February, and March is start preparing for updating. We've got to update some stuff. Some of it already is defined. Expanding our programming to the point where we get a community.
Right.
We already got that.
Right.
So we'll have to do that and start thinking about budget. The new city administrator will start somewhere around end of March, April-ish, in that vicinity. So whoever comes in is going to start running pretty quickly with the new budget. So as long as we've done our legwork on getting the strategic plan updated where we want to tweak it, and then start the budget process internally, we need to have a recommendation out of this board by July at the latest.
Yeah, so, I mean, so for the next meeting,
At the latest.
I guess at the last meeting, I wasn't here at the last meeting, so I
Yeah.
missed that, but I guess we've done a,
Staff
are we?
gave a review. Here
Yeah.
are the items we've hit. Here's what we've done. Some of them and ultimately, I would suggest, we've got 6 goals in the plan. I would suggest that we start with a couple of them, work our way through them. The next meeting in February, the next 2, the meeting in March, do the next 2. As soon as we're done with all that, April, we start the budget. What we're going to look
Okay,
for.
so let's start, everyone maybe take a look at that and start,
Goal 1 and 2.
Yeah.
start thinking about what needs to be added and what needs to be removed.
Right.
Okay?
Keeping the 30,000 foot lens you're looking at, and then figuring out. Michael will have some input as it relates to how he can communicate things differently, better, or whatever, and what we need to do on certain fronts. Some of the things we haven't even touched.
And it's the marketing
They start,
RFP is,
they start January 1.
we have somebody?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Yep,
Yep.
that's.
This last meeting.
The board approved that.
Yep.
So yeah, that starts, those services start January 1.
They will be here.
Theoretically.
Yeah, they will
So-
be here on January 23rd.
at this meeting?
Yeah, I discussed with them to come to the EDC meeting in January, and before that, we'll already have, I think, they'll be communicating with me some to get a general sort of calendar idea of here's when we want to get stuff
Right.
rolled out.
Right, and we'll be providing them with all the documents that we have, the policies, the plans, this branding initiative that we've already done, and their survey documents from Candid. All that stuff will go to them. And then, as I recall, one of the things they want to do is kind of have a stakeholder interview with, what was it, 9 or 10 people? What do we got here, a small group of 9 or 10 people?
Well,
So
yeah,
we
and
got the stakeholders already.
I asked them really generally about that. They didn't make clear whether they wanted it to be like the EDC or staff or people from the community or what. So it's probably going to be a mix.
Yeah.
And that, again, I said this before, I don't want to repeat.
Yeah, I don't need
Right.
What we've done, and we have a good staff
Right.
of input from the community.
I think their efforts there are more to get a feel for what sort of media works
Yeah.
with our people. We're not, I mean, a lot of the advertising we're doing won't be to Smithville, but it's got to be something that
So
Smithville will
I would
accept
like maybe-
as representing them.
I don't mean to attack you in a second. I just feel really strongly about this. I really would like maybe to know I would like them to know what our business owners and our restaurant owners, maybe they could be the focus group that we really didn't touch before.
I think that's mostly what they want to do is, and that's part of the discussion I have with them earlier in January before the EDC meeting is, who is it you want to talk to, or here's who I want you to talk to, because this is who we need to hear from.
Yeah, I want to
We
know
wanna
where you
build on
guys
it.
want us to advertise. I want to know what's important. to
Highway
you.
signs.
Whether or not, yeah, and maybe that's it. So seriously, or, you know, whatever it is, I want
City
to know
foot the
from
bill
our
on it. That'd be
business
awesome.
owners, what's going to be the most effective way.
Well, and,
to
right,
help
and
them,
that's,
because that's our main goal.
right. We can tell them what kind of marketing we want.
And the citizens can as well.
But I think what we need to do is tell them where we want to be, and they can say, here's the marketing plan to get there.
That's what we want.
That's what we don't want to, whether,
If we were gonna tell them what to do, then we would've should have just done it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what really that stakeholder meeting is about. It's where are you going as a city? So,
right, right. And I think your concern, or Leah, your point being, I want business owners and restaurants and that kind of stuff. I think that's why the best entity is, we've got a pre-made set of at least 6 business owners that work in town. They're invested in their community enough that they're on this board. And they're going to have the citizen survey through the branding initiative. That was in depth, and it's been fairly consistent throughout our time in the community. That same driver, the same issues have come back and forth.
Well, I think we can open it up to the community for public comment to
I
come
think
to
it
the
needs
meeting
to,
and give
yeah.
us your input.
Yeah, so-
I just don't want to spend a lot more money and hours on something we've already done.
Right.
I want to hear from a different
Absolutely.
group.
This is phase 2.
Yeah.
The branding initiative was to get us started. Here's the framework for your brand. Now go market using this branding information.
and know that we as staff, I mean, I've looked through all the branding stuff. Jack was here for it, of course. If they're trying to tell us, hey, we need to do these things over again,
Yeah, we don't.
that's when we say, here's the documents you need.
Right.
Let's spend our time on something.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we don't intend to reading things that have already been done.
Right. The SWOT analysis that was performed by Candid, associated with all of the input they got, very large amount of input, was somewhat, a little bit, handled during the mission, vision, values work sessions that the board held up at the school district earlier this year. It was 2 years after the first one, and the same basic principles have come forth. They do it every time. We just need to have someone help us put them on the street instead of talking about them in the board.
I mean, I think if we can tap that pool of, what, 1.3 million visitors that go to the lake.
Which is always on those surveys. What
I know,
we need
right?
to do.
So, you know, what kind of, to me, that's the low-hanging fruit. I mean, start.
Sure, and to
What
be
kind of
quite
marketing would bring these people
When
into
we
town?
had the discussion about Digital, the company that we ultimately have hired, that was kind of one of the deciding factors related to the fact that they were pretty heavy in tourism.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, capitalizing on tourism is one of the things that they do regularly.
So that's what we do. That's why they seem to be.
All right, any other new business? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Meeting's adjourned.
Thanks. Sorry it took so long.
Well, that's usually what I end up doing is 2 hours.